DriveClub, a game that had so much promise but ended up disappointing many people one way or the other. In this video, I'm structurally going to show you what went wrong with DriveClub, so let's get into it.
We're making the game we've always wanted to make. It's called DriveClub, and it's all about team-based racing. I've waited so long to be able to tell you about it. It's existed as a concept at the studio for 10 years. We trademarked the name DriveClub 9 years ago. You can check it online. At its heart, it's always been a very simple concept about driving the very best cars in the world, in the greatest locations in the world, but crucially, doing it together. And we've literally waited for the technology to be available to deliver our vision.
In February at the PlayStation Announce event, Matt Southern introduced DriveClub to the world. Matt talked about how we're going to reinvent racing for a new generation of gamers. A generation of gamers who expect that there will be more to play for than just racing. There will be more to play for than just racing. There will be more to play for than just racing.
In general, the second you do this, you are digging the game or product a grave. The game may not fall into the grave, but what you want is the exact opposite. You want the fans to build the game a throne or pedestal. This happens when they are the ones hyping up the game after its release. In other words, you let the excitement get the better of you. And at this point, you and your team are imagining all this awesome stuff such as design choices, the tone of the game, the direction of the game, etc, etc. But anyone who has any basic design and technology knowledge knows that not all ideas and concepts make it into a final product. So essentially, the things you had planned at the beginning will possibly or eventually become scrap, which will consequently ruin the motion of the hype train because you are bringing less to the table than what you had initially planned. In terms of gaming, ideas being held back are usually due to hardware limitations or things that are trending in the public, such as customization. You had delay after delay and just gave us trailer after trailer. Bear in mind that these trailers were not really showing anything new to restore the energy we all had for DriveClub in the first place. You even had people like me wishing Gran Turismo 6 was on PS4, but that didn't happen as Sony strategically gave you the time and spotlight that GT6 on PS4 would have had. All in all, you got on stage and told us what you were envisioning. That's fine. But when the time comes, the vision you pitch to us must deliver, if not surpass our expectations. And that goes with any product. You have no idea how impactful word of mouth is, and bad news spreads around faster than good news, unfortunately. A perfect recent example, the iPhone 6 Plus spending. No doubt about it, no two ways about it, DriveClub is a very pretty game, full of intricate details and passion to what it is presenting you. Although I do feel the graphics have been downgraded, I still feel that DriveClub is a beautiful game in any light. It has the best, not one of the best, but the best sense of speed I've ever seen. Its cockpit interior view is unprecedented and its lighting model is heavenly. But when you strip all of that away, what is DriveClub? This is where DriveClub hurts itself the most in my opinion. It's just a pretty short-term game that lets you collect XP. I'll say that again. A pretty short-term game that lets you collect XP. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, does that remind you of anything? Back to DriveClub. The game has a few locations, and within those locations, you get various tracks that apparently get very repetitive. Evolution Studios promised us a stellar social racing experience. That's great. And if you've loved Autolog in the past recent NFS games, you're going to love this. But social experiences also require some kind of online connectivity. In fact, they always require online connectivity at one point or the other. What happens when you go 100% offline? What does the game become? This is why I think they've taken the wrong route. In fact, they may have gone in the completely wrong direction with this game. Let me explain. Dig deeper than DriveClub's pretty graphics, and the game is undoubtedly quite bare bones. No physical customization, no car tuning, no track creation, nothing else to do other than race. And from what I'm hearing, it doesn't even have a replay mode. We are in a day and age where we consumers can no longer stand a racing game that doesn't offer much else. Why do you think Forza is quickly starting to overshadow Gran Turismo? Forza is becoming Gran Turismo's worst nightmare, and I bet Polyphony Digital were not ready for it at all. Oh, and let me beat the dead horse once again. Just look at what's happened to Need for Speed lately. No story, no customization, and no progression in the recent NFS games. But look now, they have decided not to release a Need for Speed game this year because they have been forced to go back to the drawing board and make sure they deliver what we want. Let's go back to Forza, as that franchise is closer to DriveClub's. It doesn't matter which you prefer. I'm personally a Gran Turismo guy over Forza, but you cannot deny that Forza is offering more than just pure racing. Nowadays, we like to have a reason to play on. It could be anything from a story that drives us forward, or a rich progression system that intertwines with a heap of unlocks. Evolution Studios, if you didn't know already, are the same people who brought us MotorStorm Pacific Rim and MotorStorm Apocalypse. If I didn't know any better, I would never be able to guess that those games were made by the same people. The tone is very much different when you compare these titles. Some may even say DriveClub takes itself too seriously. DriveClub is definitely arcade handling, and that's a good thing so far. But oh, here comes the things that hinder the game. DriveClub is a game that encourages clean driving and good behaviour on the track, but it also penalises you and is actually quite strict. If you're off the track for too long, you will get a 3-second timer prompting you to get back on the track. If you don't do so in time, you are automatically reset to the track. What is that about? Why have a strict arcade game? That is one heck of an oxymoron. I hate to do this, but let's look at a game called Hitman Absolution. And I'm bringing this up because it also has a penalty system. But see the difference here. In this game, you are penalised for going off script, but you are still free to play however you want, no matter what you do. And that's why the game got so much praise for its open approach on how to be Hitman. And now you've got DriveClub telling people how to drive, forcing them to drive how the game wants them to. Speaking of forcing, even the AI are forced to the constriction of the game, bumping into you recklessly because of that oh so precious driving line they need to stick to. At times the AI can really push you out of your way, causing you to make a mistake. Who gets penalised here? Yep, you guessed it, you.
AI racers can and do offer a challenge, but sometimes because they behave in irritating ways, causing the game to punish you for its own mistakes. Your AI opponents are concerned above all else with the racing line, regardless of which car they drive. Their lack of adaptability later in the single-player tour is a problem. AI racers tend to clump up around certain curves and ignore the presence of other vehicles, including your own. AI vehicles prefer collisions to deviations from the line, often smashing into you from behind and sending you careening into the vehicle in front of you, or sliding onto the shoulder. A collision or an overturned corner is damaging on its own in any racing game, but in DriveClub it's even more so. Should you veer too far from the pavement, or should the game determine that a collision is too violent, the game slows you down for several crucial seconds. In DriveClub, there's nothing more frustrating than a collision that is clearly not your fault, and the slowdown that follows.
You know, for a game called DriveClub, this is not what it should be. Let's just break down these words here for a second, shall we? DriveClub. 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 And this leads me into my next point. DriveClub. When I think of that name, I think of a crew, a group of friends, I think of teamwork, I think of freedom, I think of strategy, I think of free will. Essentially, I imagine that in a game called DriveClub, you should be able to drive with a group of friends however you like, clean or aggressive. Clean laps versus dirty shunts, normal cornering versus high-speed drifts. But with all these penalties and restrictions in place, no one is really allowed to express themselves. They are confined to what you want them to do, Evolution Studios. And the problem here is, these restrictions should not be in a game like DriveClub. It's not a simulator, so are the penalties just there for the sake of it? I think so. Evo needed something to add depth into the game, so they thought restrictions popping up on screen would make the game more dynamic or challenging. Maybe there could be a special mode where these restrictions would play an important part, but the whole game based off of this confinement was a bad idea, to be honest. Speaking of restrictions, there are only 50 cars and they are all European, basically, unless you want to count the Venom out. Whose idea was this? So we can't drive how we want to, and now we can't even drive what we want to? We can't even have cars from other continents? Really? Okay, so imagine this. So in my team we have me, who's in an Audi R8, let's say. Teammate 1 is a Nissan GTR fan, and teammate 2 loves the heaviness, power and rear wheel drive setup of muscle cars. Nope, that can't happen. You're not allowed to express yourself here either with your ideal choice of car. I don't think I've seen anything like this in a racing game ever. Every racing game in history has made sure it gathered cars from around the world so that A, the player can express themselves or even drive their dream car, and B, just have a varied selection of cars in general. Stupid design choice evolution, big mistake, and I better not see paid DLC trying to rectify this issue. Alright, now imagine my drive club. This is my drive club, listen up, let's go. Okay, so it could still be track racing, but it would have about 100 licensed cars from all over the world. It would have physical customization, avatar customization, or at least car tuning. There would be a huge emphasis on going up against other crews. Before races, you'll be able to see what crews you're up against, why they are a challenge, what their speciality is, the track you'll be racing on, and here you'll also be able to pick what type of tuning setup you think would work best for that track. You'd be able to pick what type of AI teammates you wanted in your team. Someone who does their best to go to the front and hold everyone else back, someone who aggressively climbed up the ranks, or even someone who just takes the best driving line and shows you it. You'd be able to command your AI teammate to put pressure on a particular opponent or other various team-based features. The game would have memorable crazy tracks that range anywhere from dangerous canyons to beautiful fields to sharp crazy corners and alleyways of a closed off downtown city. The tracks would have all sorts of themes such as deserted wastelands or muddy dirt tracks with glum dark weather with heavy rain and lightning effects. You'd have non-linear tracks allowing you to take high roads, bridges, high risk shortcuts and alleyways. You'd be able to go off track and crash through a barn if you really thought the risk would help you get back into first place. That is what I call Drive Club. And knowing Evolution Studios, I don't know why they didn't do this. Try and tell me my idea with the same graphics and attention to detail wouldn't have had more appeal. The thing is, Drive Club is a new IP, so they had all the room and breathing space to do this. What a wasted opportunity. Drive Club, the Forza Horizon 2 killer. I don't know who's running around with a dirty mouth saying this. This is Drive Club, and this, it's Forza Horizon 2.
I wish I was a little bit taller, I wish I was a baller, I wish I had a girl who looked good, I would call her. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a...
The actual fact that these games were released quite close to each other is also going to be another problem for Drive Club. Horizon 2 is literally offering so much more, and I'm not just talking about the open world factor to their game. But let's also bring up The Crew. Again, another game that is offering a heck of a lot more. A huge open world map, a varied car selection, great car customization, and to top it all off, a game that is also focusing on social racing. Social racing done properly with no boundaries or restrictions. I am not calling Drive Club a terrible game. It's not even a bad game. Those who insist on buying it know what they want and they will love it. But as you can see, it has disappointed a lot of people. So to conclude, what did go wrong with Drive Club? I will tell you the answer. Simply put, the answer is Drive Club is not what it should have been. The bottom line is you have an arcade track racer which applies penalties but also wants to boast about expressing yourself in your team. How can you really express yourself on a confined track anyway? At the end of the day, it's always going to be a linear A to B type of race anyway. It's a convoluted, flawed concept. It's a real shame because the idea has existed for about 10 years now and no one saw how the direction of the game was going to hurt its very own ideas and concepts. The handling, graphics and audio of the game are fantastic. What more could we want from a racing game? Well, to sum up, that is simply not enough these days. Racing games have evolved far too much for that to be what we find amazing. It's like someone training to become an athlete and this person is promising us they are going to be an awesome athlete, but the wannabe athlete ends up becoming a pianist. The pianist is now on stage, under the limelight, and even though we may like a few of this pianist's songs and skills, the pianist is not very diverse and only knows a few songs to play us. In other words, this visually impressive game falls short. It falls short of expectations, falls short on things to do, and it even falls short on its very own targets. I mean, at one point this game had a 12-member limit per crew. It's now down to 6. And in that 6-member crew, you are stuck there. You cannot be in more than one crew at a time. So yes, its pretty face was not enough to hold it up under the limelight, and now the crowd would like to take their money and time elsewhere.
Here we are on the road together, racing time, you and I, trying to climb the snakes and ladders and block the shadows.